Hey, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. If you look in the description below, you're going to see some Amazon affiliate links where you can purchase the film on 4K UHD disc that I'm about to talk about, and also some links to some of this equipment that I'm using, like this softbox that's lighting my face, and also this background light, which is blue now, but you can change it to all kinds of different colors. But right now, I think blue is working for me right now. But today we're going to talk about a new Shout Factory 4K UHD release of the 1986 supernatural horror film, Poltergeist. Now, if you buy this directly from the Scream Factory site, you can, if it's still available, you can get this poster here. Now, I didn't get the poster, but I'm going to put a superimposed poster here. It's really the same art as this on the slipcover here, which is the original theatrical artwork for the movie. Previously, Scream Factory released a Blu-ray with an artist commission work that I was very impressed by. I'm going to go ahead and superimpose a little bit of that right here. Now, I never did get a copy of it, unfortunately, but I really did like the artwork for that release. I do like the simplicity of the theatrical cover art, so it works as well. Now, Poltergeist 2: The Other Side is a direct sequel to Poltergeist. Poltergeist was directed by Tobe Hooper and produced by Steven Spielberg. Now, Steven Spielberg also, from what I've read, was involved with the direction as well in a somewhat of an annoying fashion. But I do see, when you watch this film, which is a very, very good movie, I would rate this movie probably 4.5 or 5 stars. But to me, you do see a lot of Spielberg's direction in this film, and it does help it. Poltergeist 2: The Other Side, neither Spielberg nor Tobe Hooper returned for this one, but 2 of the original writers returned. Their names were Michael Grayes, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and Mark Victor. But Steven Spielberg in the first Poltergeist, he was involved with the writing as well, but he wasn't on this one at all. But the 2 of the writers came back, and they obviously were very familiar with the characters and familiar with the story. And so the question was, do you really need a sequel to Poltergeist? And probably not, but it works in its own way. So most of the actors from the first film returned for the sequel. They were able to get Craig T. Nelson back and Jo Beth Williams. The youngest daughter, Heather O'Rourke, who plays the character Caroline, returns here. And in the first film, she's off screen a lot because she's the one that gets sucked into the TV, into the other realm, and they have to go back into the spirit realm to get her back. But here she's in the whole movie, and so she has an expanded role, and she does a very, very good job with it. Very, very good, very soulful type of performance from her. The youngest son returns, played by Oliver Robbins. Unfortunately, the oldest daughter, played by Dominique Dunne, was murdered after she had finished the first movie by her boyfriend. Other returning actresses, Zelda Rubinstein, who played Tangia, does return as the psychic type of character. And then there are a few new characters here. Will Sampson, a Native American, plays a Native American character who comes to help them, sent by Tangia, the psychic. And also Julian Beck, I believe that's his name, Julian Beck plays the main antagonist, and we will talk more about him in a little bit. So let's take a look at the film, the packaging here. So we have a slip cover, and then in the inside we also have this the same poster, theatrical work. The disc, we have 2 discs. We have a Blu-ray and a 4K. And there's no reversible slipcover, it's just white on the back. So this was my first time watching this film all the way through. For some reason, I don't know, I've always had a kind of a problem with the film as far as maybe the pacing or the way that it looks. But I do have a greater appreciation for it now that I've actually sat down and forced myself to watch the whole film. Now, previously, I've seen scenes from it. I've seen it on TV, and for some reason I've just never caught it from the very beginning. But there's this one scene with Julian Beck, who plays the antagonist Kane, when he comes to the door and he talks to the dad. Now, for some reason I've seen that on TV popping up. That scene is an amazing scene, and I've always thought it was amazing. Even more recently than that, maybe within the last year, it was on streaming, and I tried to watch it. It's something that I have like a weird thing about streaming. It's like I start to watch something, and I might not ever finish it. But I did start to watch this, and I never finished it, and I just wasn't connecting with it. But here I got the 4K release, and I sat down, and I'm like, I'm watching this thing, and I'm going to watch the whole thing from the beginning to the end. Now, it is a pretty good movie. You know, it's not as good as the first film, but it does have some depth to it, and it does expand on the elements from the first film in a meaningful way. It brings some more light to some things that maybe not necessarily need more light, but they work in a way. They do have some dialogue in the film where they're almost kind of making fun of some elements from the first film in odd ways. Like, for instance, they're talking about at the end of the first film, their house vanishes. So there's some kind of comedic dialogue where the husband, Craig T. Nelson's character, is frustrated that they can't get the insurance money because the insurance company's like, the house might come back or something like that. So there's some little bit of jokey stuff going on there, but it's something that could possibly happen. And then at one point, when the Indian guy, or he's a Native American, cowboys and Indians, now I guess you just call them Native Americans. So, but when he shows up, and they don't want him there, Craig T. Nelson, they're kind of fed up with it. And then he says something about Tangia sent me. And then Craig T. Nelson says something like, "Oh, the magic munchkin." So they're kind of making fun of Tangia's height there. But it's kind of weird that he would go there to like somebody who helped them get their daughter back to begin with. But at the same time, you do have a family who has dealt with a supernatural event in the past that was traumatic to them, and they don't want to go back to there. But here they are. They're there. They've been followed by the poltergeist apparition. So let's talk about the plot a little bit. I don't want to drag this out too far, so we're going to do this quickly. But I do want to touch on a few things that are fairly interesting. So it starts out, the Tangia character is part of this dig that they found this cave under the neighborhood that the original poltergeist took place in, and they find all these skeletons, and almost like a type of preacher one who was standing in front of them. They're all skeletons. So then she calls her friend, the Native American Taylor character. He has been having visions about all this stuff, and she wants him to go and help the family. It cuts to the family. They've relocated to the grandmother's house, which is in Arizona. But Caroline's starting to have these visions again. The grandmother's also has some visions. She's also very, very in tune with the spiritual world. The mom seems to have this same type of ability as well, a little bit. The grandmother is very connected with the daughter Caroline in this, and there's a very good scene where the grandmother and Caroline have a talk here. Now, Heather O'Rourke, who plays Caroline, I think here, like, you see her on screen a lot more. She even in the first one, she's really good, but here you just see she seems to almost have a very almost old soul type of appearance, especially in the scene with the grandmother and their back and forth. I really felt like just her acting here, and it almost felt like an old just like her with her eyes. It felt like an old soul in a very young body to me. Unfortunately, the actress did die really young, about 12 years old, after the third film. But here she does a very good job. It would have been nice to see her, what she would have done moving forward. Now, eventually the grandmother dies. Before she does, the little girl goes in there and she sees her in the bed, and she kisses her on the cheek or whatever, and then leaves. But after she dies, before the daughter Caroline finds out that she is dead, she gets a phone call on her toy phone, and she answers it and talks to her grandmother, and she knows she's already dead. So it is a very powerful scene in a way. The weird thing about the phone, it's handled there in a powerful kind of way where she talks to her dead grandmother. Later on, the evil demons start to call her through the phone, the same phone, so they kind of take advantage. It's almost like her grandmother's death and her grandmother calling to tell her whatever she needed to say at the very end of her life. That kind of invited the demons to come back and start messing with the family. Eventually, the Indian guy shows up, or the Native American, but he shows up and starts to help them. They don't really want his help at first. They try to leave, but then they find out that no matter where they go, these evil spirits are coming after them, and they have to go back. Now, it's not like comedy horror in some, but there is some somewhat comedic dialogue occasionally in this film. It works for the most part. It helps lighten up a few things. Now, this film does have a large amount of scenes that take place during the day, and I don't know if it's off-putting, but it does make it less kind of creepy in a way. But at the same time, when this old man who plays the preacher, the deceased preacher who has been targeting them the whole time, when he shows up during the day, even though it's during the day, he does appear very creepy, and he's like the kind of evil incarnate, trying to get them to let him in to their house. Now, Julian Beck, who plays the main antagonist, Reverend Kane, in the film, he isn't in a lot of scenes, but he leaves a very strong impression by the time it's over. The actor was around 60 years old at the time when they were shooting the film, but he was suffering from stomach cancer. I'm not sure if this was a makeup effect or if he was, or during his scenes, that was just the way he looked, because he looks almost to be 100 years old when you're watching his scenes in the movie. But later in the film, Craig T. Nelson's character becomes possessed by him briefly, and Craig T. Nelson does a friggin' fantastic job imitating the performance of Julian Beck in these scenes. He's quite frightful. And then at the end, later on, the Reverend character is replaced with a monster when they go into the astral plane part of the film. I'm not sure if he was supposed to shoot more scenes and he wasn't able to because he was ill, or if it was always planned that way. Another actor had to dub a lot of his lines because he died before they were able to completely finish the film. In the last act of this film, probably the last 30 minutes of it, it does kind of get a little creature featurey in a way. There's some pretty cool looking stuff, and this is the first time I've seen that part of the film. H.R. Geiger, who designed the alien monster and stuff like that, did design some of these creatures. He wasn't on set to make sure they looked like he wanted them to look, but they do look pretty cool. There's several of these creatures that you see on screen closer to the end that are fairly impressive. Now, there's some dialogue I'm going to touch real quick with the Native American Indian is talking to the mom, played by Jo Beth Williams, and she says, I hope the children, they learn to forget all this soon. And he responds back, and he's like, they cannot learn by forgetting. And she's like, they're just children. He says, children have fought wars, built nations. They are strong and have courage. Don't treat them like that just because they are young. So, I don't know. I mean, I thought that was a fairly powerful kind of speech for him. And so he's implying, too, that the family have to work together in order to defeat this evil which they, I don't know, do they fight? Do they defeat it at the end? Because there is a Poltergeist 3. As far as the transfer here, I think it is taken from the original camera negative of the 35mm camera negative. It looks very good. There is some grain here and there. A lot of the scenes, especially the special effects, transfer fairly well. They have a lot of kind of matted shots and even like the scenes where the monsters are kind of maybe stop motion like monsters. It all looks fairly good. Like I say, there is some in some places there is some heavy grain they weren't able to get around, but you probably want the grain to be there. If you take the grain away, all you have is like an AI smooth stuff going on. You lose a lot of detail. For the dark scenes, the blacks look very nice. Watching it for the first time, really, even though I'd seen scenes of it, I thought it was a lot better than I thought once I gave it more of a chance. I'm going to rate Scream Factory's presentation a 4, and I'm going to rate the movie a 3.5, leaning heavily towards a 4. It is a well-made sequel to a classic film. It does justify its own existence by what you see on screen. So I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. If you haven't done so already, if you would like this video and subscribe. Thanks for watching.